I think food's something that always has made me happy. It makes me happy now as a restaurateur, seeing other people happy in my venues eating food, but it's always been of significant importance to me. And I've always been really interested in different cuisines and cultures and the way they eat food and prepare food. But it's been, it is my life, and it's something I'm really passionate about.
Professionally, it's been the most invigorating part of my life because I totally love food. I love produce, and I love the stories around produce and food.
It's given me a career. It's given me a way to relate to the world around me. It's given me a way to access my community and give back to them. It's been a very important part of my life.
The first thing I think about when I wake up in the morning is, what am I going to cook?
If I don't eat well, then I don't feel well. And there is a philosophy around this too, which is keep it simple. I learned from my mother, who was, I think, a wonderful cook, that you only need few ingredients. As long as they're fresh, then you have everything that you need.
Well, my earliest food memories would come from Derby, and there we were eating a lot of really local food. And my mum always scratched out a vegetable patch wherever she was and kept chickens. So you had to eat what was available there and then, what you could get from the land, either the shellfish or fish, cattle, whatever you could grow or collect yourself. I can remember eating baobab nuts as a kid. That was a great treat for us.
I think I was probably about 4, and I wanted to make my own icy poles. So I went to the fridge, got out the lemonade, poured it all into the ice blocks, put it in the freezer and waited. I had to wait a whole day. Mum said, you've got to wait a whole day, because I kept opening up the freezer and shutting it again. Next day, opened up the freezer, pulled them out, getting ready for a beautiful ice block lemonade, and it had gone all salty. But my brothers had taken all the ice cubes out, eaten the lemonade ones and replaced it with salt and water. And I thought that you couldn't freeze lemonade.
Earliest memory of food is probably around growing up and working in a fish market, of a fishmongering heritage. It was really, really important seeing and feeling and touching seafood from an early age. But it's probably more even recreationally, going fishing from the age of 3 and 4, diving from an early age, surfing, being involved in the water. But it all really revolved around produce for me.
My earliest food memories are riding down to the dairy on the farm. That'd be connecting the milk tubes to the cows. The warm milk would be in the vats. They would be taken up to the edge of the road, and the milk trucks would come and collect. We'd have warm milk on cereals in the morning, straight from the dairy. And the other thing is, I never forget Dad and Mum always picking mushrooms in autumn and winter, and they would always grow out of the cow pats. I never forget that, and I never ate them because of that when I was a kid.
So growing up, the dinner table was a lot of really beautiful produce. I think my family always loved to go to the farmer's market on a Saturday morning. I remember we'd always go into Fremantle, and back then Fremantle was just full of Italian grocers and Italian restaurants, and I think that informed a lot of the food that my mum loved to cook, was like very wholesome, simple Italian meals.
Yeah, the family dinner table was interesting, and it certainly it was shaped by our Greek heritage. But my mum is actually of Scottish heritage, so that said, she was I think trained to be a Greek chef, which was a necessity, marrying a Greek man back then. But look, it was quite diverse. So Mum, she was really into her food, so dinners were really well considered and prepared. But it was quite diverse, so it wasn't necessarily Greek food. It was a range of things. She used to do an epic curry. But it was a process. It certainly wasn't slapped together. It was, really, really well planned. And that's on a nightly basis.
My table growing up was really shaped by my mother being English rather than my father being Aboriginal, because she was the cook in the house. So we ate pretty standard fare with whatever ingredients there were to hand. Probably be the standard meal of the day back in the 50s and 60s, which was some sort of protein and vegetables or a salad, And as I said, Mum would have to grow the salad herself because there was no fresh food.
Well, Mum never claimed to be an amazing cook, and she was pretty, 70s, right? So sausages, peas and mash, chops, peas and mash, tuna mornay, chicken noodle soup. She just basically cooked to feed us. She was a very busy nurse and a wonderful woman and really simple food.
The family dinner table on the farm was the entire family, 4 kids, mum and dad, around the table, feeding on whatever was available, always fresh milk, really simple food, lots of roast meats, limited vegetables. But my Uncle Frank had a potato farm in Carbonup, so we always had fresh potatoes.
In the early days, my mother did actually make her own pasta. So she would make, there's a typical Abruzzese dish called spaghetti alla chitarra, which is spaghetti made by the guitar. And this was actually an instrument which was actually had some taut strings across it, so it looked like a guitar. And then you would make the flat pasta and then you would press it through. Hence, you would have this spaghetti which looked like long squares. And it's amazing how different shapes give you different flavours.
A recipe that I've carried with me throughout my life would just be my mum's pea and ham soup. I kind of remember she'd always cook it for you when you were sick or under the weather. And I just remember it being this, magical pot of dark green liquid that was bubbling away on the stove, and it would stink out the whole house, and we'd be eating it for weeks afterwards because she'd make such large batches. And I still feel very fond of those memories when I make that myself.
There is a dish that I carried with me throughout my life, and that's abalone on toast. We used to go diving in front of my family's home from a very early age. Would catch abalone and go back to the house and then just pan fry it and eat it on toast with butter, salt and pepper. I think it goes back to my grandfather had a beach house in North Beach on West Coast Drive, not far from where I grew up. And so he was doing that from, the 1920s, 1930s. So it's something that our family's done now like for 3, 4 and 4 generations. So yeah, it's a dish that also carries with it, I guess, some significance in the fact that we were catching the produce ourselves and then eating it.
For me, it's really about the philosophy of cooking, in which something that was instilled in me by my mother, and it is about the simplicity of the dishes. It is about the sourcing of the fresh ingredients. It's about putting those things together so that they are very delicious and that the actual ingredient or the actual thing that you're making, you can actually taste it. So sometimes, we overcomplicate our foods and we put so many ingredients into them that you actually lose the essence of what it is that you're supposed to be having. So it's very important.
A dish that would remind me of my family and my heritage that I've carried since childhood is kangaroo tail brawn. I went somewhere with my dad once and it was a bit of a gathering, and on the table there was all this newspaper put down and lots of dampers made, and then somebody walked in with a big silver square kerosene tin with the top taken off, and they upended it on the table, and out on the table fell a great quivering tower of kangaroo tail brawn, which had everything in it that you could think of, hard-boiled eggs, vegetables, as well as all the meat from the tail, all surrounded by this lovely jelly. And everybody was just getting this hot damper and digging into the brawn. A wonderful experience for me. I never forgot it, and I love making kangaroo tail brawn to this day.
Every Sunday, Mum would cook a roast. So we'd go to the Seaview Tavern because we were all playing in a band. And we'd go to she'd stick the roast in the oven for 4 hours. And then we'd all come back here, all the musos and everything, they'd all come back here and we'd all sit around and eat Mum's roast. And it was just potatoes, peas and rolled roast. But I do occasionally just go out and buy that old rolled roast to get that feeling of mum and home.
For me, the quintessential Western Australian dish would have to be fish and chips. Coming from a fishmongering fish and chip shop background, I think seeing and eating jewfish and chips is probably something I'd perceive as being very Western Australian centric.
For me, a quintessential WA dish has got to be just really good quality seafood on the barbecue.
I think the most quintessential West Australian dish would have to be the good old meat pie. We're all pie girls in this family, more so than the boys. Yeah, us girls all have a pie fetish.
A quintessential West Australian dish, only one, it would have to be kangaroo stew, particularly thickened up with lovely local wattle seed. It gives it an amazing flavour.
What is quintessentially West Australian is the barbecue. Roast meats or fish or whatever you like on a plate with some salad. I think that's perfect.
We even wrote songs about it when we were in the jammed huts. He's my guy, I buy his pies. Du, 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 du.
I'm probably going to call it for marron because we grew marron on our farm in the dams. If the shags didn't get them, we did.
Probably one of the most questionable food trends is avocado on toast. I think that's really overrated.
That era we went through where everything was foraged, even if it was just rosemary from your neighbour's garden.
I can clearly remember the brown food days, which is the 70s. Lots of casseroles. Everything was brown, everything was brown. Brown food, brown food, brown food.
We definitely went through a very big hit of WA dude food where pulled pork made its way onto every menu in Perth.
Growing up, there were no fast food shops. So, late at night, if you'd been to the drive-in movies or something like that, we would go and hang out at hamburger joints. And I particularly remember one in Fremantle called Captain Munchies. I'm not sure that the food quality was really good, but there was something about going there late at night and eating greasy hamburgers with fried onions. That was very special. Now I look back and I think, how did we do that?
And I'm very glad we've moved away from the phase of deconstructed meals. That was an interesting one.
I think my favourite West Australian restaurant is Gino's. Been going there since I was little, always have the prawn pasta, love listening to all the Italian accents and, don't have to go to Italy. You just go down to Gino's and you feel like you're right there.
One of them that comes to mind is Perugino, which was in West Perth. They introduced their restaurant, I think it was in the 80s, but I think they really brought that Umbrian feel, which we hadn't seen so much. A lot of the food that we had here was coming from, from the south, from Sicilia and from, Calabria and Napoli and even Abruzzo. So it was good to see something that was a little bit different coming through.
Eating cuttlefish at the club restaurant at Cable Beach. It's delicious food I thought I'd ever eaten. And so it's really stuck with me.
My favourite Western Australian restaurant of all time would be Alto's in Subiaco, which is no longer open. One of Steve Scaffidi's venues. It was just really quite, cutting edge for its day in a European bistro brasserie sense, kind of transported to New York vibes. But, even on a Monday, I recall going there and I took my wife on our first date there actually. And we went on a Monday and it was buzzing on a Monday. So Alto's was just a really amazing combination of food, drink, service, and then atmosphere and ambience. And I've just got such great memories of it because it was quite unique for Perth in that era.
Now, for example, I enjoy just the good hearty meals. For example, there's a place called Coccodrillo, which is pizza and vino, and that's it. And they make some pasta too, but I love those places because you can get a really great plate of pasta or you can get a fabulous pizza from the oven. And You can't beat that.
If I had to pick a favourite West Australian restaurant, I would probably say Glenarty Road, because of their commitment to growing, making and developing almost everything on the property, growing and making delicious wine to go with it, all wrapped in a welcome that is warm and genuine and truly authentic.
I hate to think of the power of food in today's climate where people are starving to death in Gaza. You know, there was always at our table, don't waste food, eat what's on your plate, don't take more than you can eat, because there will be somebody in the world somewhere who doesn't have enough to eat. So food can be a weapon. Food is a treat. Food is comforting, and food has memories. So it's very powerful in everybody's life if you stop to think about it.
One of the most special things about food and about cooking for people is that it is such a fleeting experience. You're taking one moment in time where you're giving somebody a dish that is never going to exist again, and you're creating a memory with them. And I think it has an incredible way of connecting two strangers, because of I'm here cooking something that is from my memory and from my cultural experience, and I'm giving it to you, and it's triggering all of these memories of your experiences and your concept of value when it comes to food and memories that are involved in that. And I think food has an incredible way of taking you back to those moments. And I think when you can cook something that's memorable for someone, it's something that will stay with them for a really long time.
I think food also brings communities together. It is a conduit for people to share their experiences, share their stories, to discuss, to argue, and also go on a sensory journey through the exploration of the food that they have before them.
The power of food is in connection. It's about connection around the family table, around the restaurant table, but it's about bringing people together. And also, I get so much out of the connection I get with suppliers and growers and fishermen, people growing asparagus, you name it. But also the connection is something that we enjoy so much when we enjoy a delicious plate of food.
Over time and over the years, whether it's with family, whether it's with friends, whether you're traveling, food for me is always, at the heart of some of my most fondest moments in life.
I love cooking. I love the smell of food. I think what I really love is a party. And I love gathering people. And if, we can use food as a beautiful way of gathering people, and, my two favourite things, company, big family, beautiful food. Doesn't get better than that.